Hey everybody, Akamatzu here, back with another thoughts video. This time on Visions of Mana. Before I get started, I got a bit of housekeepings to do. First and foremost, part of the Federal Trade Commission regulations, I have to disclose to you that I did not buy this game. I was given this game by Square Enix. So you can take that information and do whatever you want with it. Call me still, all the comments that come for that stuff. But I didn't buy this game myself. I was gifted it or given it by Square Enix. So other things, I guess. I think that's about the only thing really. So Visions of Mana. It's my first entry into the Mana series. I have heard of the series before, but that's it. And I really mean heard. I've never seen anything about it. I know it's like one of the I feel like it's kind of like held, like you know how you have like Star Ocean, you have Final Fantasy. I feel like Mana has its own spot there too, even if it's not. They don't really come out with that many. At least that's how it felt like to me. But I knew very little of it. Where I have never played a Star Ocean game. I guess I did play the last one, but I played for like 5 hours. But I've seen footage. I've never seen single footage of this series. So much so that I thought it was a turn-based RPG. And when it turned out to not to be one, I was pretty surprised. So then I thought that, oh, okay, they probably just changed the latest one to be more appealing to more people. And then I come to find out with someone in my Twitch chat sharing a clip that it's kind of always kind of been like an action RPG to my surprise. And I was like, okay, just to show how little I knew about the series. Just like I do with pretty much every game that I play, I don't really like watch trailers that often for games outside of like like state of plays and Nintendo Directs and stuff like that, or Summer Games Fest. So I saw one trailer for this game and I couldn't even tell you where. I thought it was interesting just off that alone, and so I was interested in playing it and buying it myself. But it's not how it turned out. So I found it interesting, so I was glad I got the opportunity to play it. I ended up playing it on hard mode, which is the hardest difficulty that you can play on it out of the box. And the game roughly took me around, let's see. No, wrong one. 77 hours and 57 minutes to finish. So it's a pretty lengthy game. I did all the side quests that I could find. I don't know if I missed any. I didn't use the checklist or anything like that. We did all the super bosses in the game. The only thing I didn't do was there's like this little guy to find to get some items from, and he's like, I think there's one of him on every map. I didn't do that. But I pretty much did like what I would say is everything that mattered to me. So it's a pretty lengthy game. Normally how I structure these, I usually do the good, the bad, and like a new category I came up with while doing these wish lists. So let's just start off with the good. Just like I said, it's a pretty lengthy game for the price that they're asking for. I mean, you're going to be pretty busy for a while, which people seem to held in pretty wide regard. And it seems like quite a few people don't really like their games to be on the shorter side. So, 80 hours is pretty good. And it has New Game Plus if you want to dive back into it. So pretty nice. It's a very pretty game. They go for like a cell shaded style, I guess you could call it. And it looks really nice. It reminds me a lot of Tales of Arise. And you're probably going to hear me say this over and over again, but it really does in a lot of aspects. Like the world does, it's like sectioned off, mapped, kind of just like Tales is as well. I thought Tales was rated M, so I thought like this was like the teen version, and then Tales was the mature version, but they're both rated T. I come to find out, I thought this was rated E. Pretty surprising, but it's a beautiful game. I thought the storyline was fine for the most part. It's very kiddie. But there's nothing wrong with kitty every now and then, if that's like not your taste, at least to me. I thought it was pretty entertaining. I laughed at it at moments of it. I thought some of it was dumb, but in the end, I thought it was pretty fun. The combat's pretty easy to grasp too. It's not too difficult to grasp, and there's also a bunch of different builds you can make with how it's set up with the different job systems and the different ways of attaching abilities and stuff. You can have a lot of different builds, which I'm particularly fond of in RPGs. They give you a lot of variety and a lot of stuff for you to work with if you want to, but you also don't have to. There was one character that in the game that I can just kind of just completely ignored until like the last 3 fights I did in the game, because I just didn't really need them. I don't really think that's bad design, because I don't really think you have to need to use all the characters. Like it, again, like in Tales of Arise, I didn't use Dalhalim. I sucked with them. So I just ended up never using them, and it was really not a non-issue. And it's more of the same here, except I didn't suck with them. I just didn't need them until the very end, and then they turned out to be extremely useful. So they were there when it mattered. But they give you a lot of different options, or a lot of different styles to play the game, and it's pretty simplistic, I would say. It's not too overly complicated, but it can get as deep as you want it to be. And there's some very reminiscent elements of like Final Fantasy 3, I believe. I can't remember if it's Final Fantasy 3 or Final Fantasy 5. One of those games, there's something in it that's kind of like that, and I thought that was pretty cool, which I unlocked on my final day of playing. The music is nice. It's very good soundtrack, and I think that's about all I have to say about in the good category. It was a pretty pleasant experience, but let's jump over to what I would say for the bads or the cons. I don't think there's any real strong characters to really latch onto in this game, and I think that's what will separate it from other games, is that I would say even in your main cast, there isn't really like at least characters that I latched onto that I thought were pretty interesting. The one that I latched onto was the bad guy. But at least like in, I don't know, in Final Fantasy games, I feel like there's I always get kind of like immersed in the story for the most part, and there's characters I'm interested in. There wasn't really many characters in this game storyline wise that I was really interested in, and I feel like that's also to side characters too. I think the only real side character that's pretty memorable outside of one of the characters' siblings is one of the other characters, like foster dad. Other than that, it's not really memorable characters in most places you go to. And I don't know, I kind of view that as like a detriment. Just, you know, you're trying to get yourself to care about the world and the characters and stuff and the story and everything, and characters are a part of that. So for me, there wasn't really many that I don't know, cared about. And then there's also some things that are just not so good. While in my opinion, I think the lock-on mechanic in this game could use some work. It doesn't latch you to the enemy, which I feel like it should, because it locks you on, but you don't really feel locked on. And on my last day of playing, it like wouldn't even work sometimes. There's these, I had this happen throughout the playthrough, but like when I would pull up the map, icons wouldn't show on the map, but they were there. So I was just like, oh, okay, it just didn't load. But eventually that started happening in combat with the lock-on mechanic, so I couldn't tell who I was locked on to during like an extremely hard fight, and it made the whole process like pretty frustrating, I would say. So there's like some bugs like that. There's also some bugs in terms of like your inputs being eaten. In the menu, you can easily do it in the menu by going to a shop, and you can hear the confirm sound, but nothing happens. So then you have to do it again. And this goes into like items. This goes into other stuff. I also don't really understand why they do the item system or the item usage in combat the way they do, with how you can't use an item while moving. You have to stand still to use the item, and I feel like in an action RPG that kind of just doesn't make sense. I feel like it should queue. Like you tell the game to use the item, and then you're doing whatever you want, and then it uses the item because you just told the game to do that. Rather than you tell the game to use the item, and then the game's like, no, I'm not using it because you're not standing still. I don't know. To me, I guess it's more of a preference thing, and I should put it in the wish list category. But that was frustrating, and I thought it was a bug. and I didn't think it was working until someone pointed out to me that they were like, "No, it doesn't work that way." And I scratched my head, and I was like, "Why? That's not intuitive." So I didn't really like that per se. Uh, mm, and I think that's pretty much about it. I mean, it does feel like you get hit really hard to the point that like defense doesn't really matter in this game. I'm not really going to use that as a complaint though, but it does feel that way. Uh, and I would like the combat to be a little bit more snappier than what it is, but it's not bad. I just wish it was a little bit more tighter, but it's good. It's fine. Um that being said, I don't really even think I have many wish lists for that category with this. I think I pretty much have shared all I thought about the game. In conclusion, I think it's a really nice game. Um I'm glad I got to play it. I'm glad I got to finally experience what, like, say, the Mana series has to offer. It's been a lot of firsts for me for these last couple of years. Like, for instance, with the Tales series, I played Arise. That was the first one I ever played, even though I wanted to play Symphonia all the way back, and then it just never happened. So I'm glad that I finally got to experience this one this way, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I would recommend it to other people. I think it's an enjoyable experience, even despite the negative things that I said. I still walked away with it enjoying myself. So I think that's about all I got. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.